The phone rang at exactly 11:47 p.m., cutting through the quiet hum of the hospice ward like a blade. Celeste Rivera glanced at the caller ID, unknown number, and her heart did what it always did when late-night calls came through. It braced for bad news. She pressed the phone to her ear, keeping her voice steady despite the exhaustion weighing down every syllable. Hospice ward, this is Celeste. Silence. Then a tiny breath. A child's voice, trembling and small. My daddy cries at night when he thinks I'm asleep. He's so lonely. Will you marry him? Celeste's hand froze mid-reach for her coffee cup. The question hung in the air like something fragile and impossible, something that didn't belong in the sterile fluorescent glow of a hospital corridor at midnight. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. Sweetheart, who is this? The little voice wavered. I'm Lily. I found Daddy's phone. You're the emergency number. That means you help people, right? Please, he needs help. Celeste's chest tightened. She'd taken thousands of calls in her 7 years as a hospice nurse. Families in crisis, patients in pain, doctors needing updates, but nothing had ever sounded like this. This wasn't a medical emergency. This was a child's desperate plea wrapped in the kind of innocence that could shatter a person. She sank into the chair behind the nurse's station, gripping the phone tighter. Lily, honey, does your daddy know you're calling? Pause. Then, so quietly Celeste almost missed it. No. He doesn't know I know he's sad. Something cracked open inside Celeste's chest. She thought of her own loneliness, the way it sat in her ribs like a stone she'd learned to carry. She thought of the nights she came home to an empty apartment, the silence so thick it felt like drowning. She thought of her ex-husband's last text message, still saved in her phone like evidence of her failure. I didn't sign up for this. Good luck. Lily, she said softly, where's your daddy right now? At work. He's always at work. Celeste closed her eyes. Of course he was. And who's taking care of you? Auntie Vivian. But she's not nice when Daddy's not looking. She tells me to be quiet. She says I'm too much trouble. Celeste's fingers tightened around the phone. Every instinct she had, the ones honed by years of caring for the dying, the broken, the forgotten, screamed at her that this child needed more than a stranger on the phone. But what could she do? What should she do? Lily, sweetheart, I think maybe you should talk to your daddy about this. He won't listen. The words burst out, raw and aching. He doesn't listen anymore. Not since Mommy died. He just works and works and works and I'm so lonely and I thought maybe if someone could make him happy again, he'd come home. Celeste pressed her free hand against her mouth, fighting the tears that burned behind her eyes. This wasn't her problem. This wasn't her responsibility. She had enough on her plate, her mother's medical bills, the double shifts that left her too exhausted to think, the crushing weight of trying to hold everything together with hands that never stopped shaking. But the child's voice. God, the child's voice. Lily, she whispered, I'm just a nurse. I don't know your daddy. I don't know if I can. You sound nice. You sound like someone who cares. Celeste bit down on her lip hard enough to taste copper. When was the last time someone had said that to her? When was the last time anyone had seen past the exhaustion and the walls she'd built and recognized the person underneath? I do care, she said and meant it. But honey, this isn't something I can fix with a phone call. Then can I call you again? Just to talk. Every professional boundary Celeste had ever learned screamed at her to say no. To give the child the number for a counseling service, to suggest she speak to a school therapist, to do anything except what she was about to do. Okay, she heard herself say. You can call me. But only if you promise to try talking to your daddy too. Deal? Deal. Relief flooded the small voice, so palpable Celeste could almost feel it through the phone line. Thank you. Thank you so much. The line went dead before Celeste could say another word. She sat there in the empty hallway staring at her phone, wondering what she'd just agreed to. Wondering if she'd just made a terrible mistake or if something had just shifted in her life in a way she couldn't yet understand. Have you ever received a call that changed everything? A moment that split your life into before and after? Keep watching because Lily's desperate plea is about to set off a chain of events no one saw coming. 16 hours earlier, Celeste had stood in the tiny kitchen of her apartment, staring at the stack of medical bills that seemed to multiply like weeds. The number at the bottom of the latest invoice made her stomach twist. $4,847. And that was just this month. She rubbed her eyes, trying to calculate how many extra shifts she'd need to pick up. The math didn't work. It never did. No matter how hard she worked, how many hours she logged, the debt grew faster than her paychecks could chase it. Her phone buzzed. A text from Bethany, her coworker and the closest thing she had to a friend these days. You coming in early again? Girl, you're going to burn out. Celeste typed back quickly, don't have a choice. Bills don't pay themselves. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then your ex is trash. You know that, right? Celeste's jaw tightened. She knew. God, did she know? Richard had promised forever, had stood at an altar and vowed in sickness and in health. And then the second her mother got diagnosed, the second the medical bills started piling up and Celeste's world narrowed to hospital visits and insurance calls and trying to keep everything from falling apart, he'd walked out. No fight. No discussion. Just a text message and an empty closet. She deleted Bethany's message without responding and grabbed her keys. She had a shift starting in 20 minutes, and if she was lucky she'd be too busy to think about how her life had become a series of emergencies she couldn't quite outrun. The hospice ward at St. Mercy's smelled like antiseptic and resignation. Celeste pushed through the doors, forcing her exhaustion into a smile as she passed the front desk. The night shift was always quieter, which meant more time alone with her thoughts, exactly what she didn't need. She made her rounds, checking on patients, adjusting IVs, offering small comforts that felt like drops in an ocean of suffering. Mrs. Patterson in 302 was having trouble breathing. Mr. Chin in 315 wanted to talk about his grandson. Celeste listened, held hands, did what she always did. Gave pieces of herself to people who needed them more than she did. By the time she reached her mother's room, her feet ached and her eyes burned. Mama Rosa was awake, propped up against pillows that seemed to swallow her shrinking frame. The cancer had stolen so much. Her strength, her energy, the vibrant spark that used to light up every room she entered. But her eyes, when they found Celeste's face, still held all the love in the world. Mija, she said softly, reaching out a trembling hand. You look tired. Celeste sank into the chair beside the bed, lacing her fingers through her mother's. I'm fine, Mama. Liar. But Rosa smiled, squeezing Celeste's hand with what little strength she had left. You give so much to everyone else. When will you let someone give to you? Celeste looked away, focusing on the stand instead of the question she couldn't answer. I don't need anything, Mama. I just need you to rest. What you need, Rosa said, her voice gentle but firm, is to stop running. Stop hiding behind these walls you've built. You're so afraid of being hurt again that you've forgotten how to let people in. Celeste's throat tightened. Richard hurt me, Mama. He left when I needed him most. Why would I risk that again? Because not everyone is Richard. Rosa's thumb traced circles on the back of Celeste's hand. And because a life without love, without connection, isn't really living. It's just surviving. And me, Nina, you were made for more than survival. Celeste wanted to argue, wanted to explain that survival was all she had left, that love was a luxury she couldn't afford. But the words stuck in her throat, tangled up with too many feelings she'd spent years trying to bury. So instead, she stayed silent, holding her mother's hand, and tried not to think about how much time they had left. Across the city, in a penthouse that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime, Donovan Cross stood at his office window and stared at the skyline without seeing it. 2 a.m. He'd been working for 19 hours straight, and his eyes burned with exhaustion he refused to acknowledge. Numbers scrolled across 3 different monitors behind him: stock prices, quarterly reports, acquisition projections. His company was thriving. His empire was expanding. And none of it meant a damn thing. The office door opened without a knock. Tucker Hayes, his assistant and the only person who'd dare interrupt him at this hour, walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. When's the last time you went home? Tucker asked, setting 1 cup on the desk. Donovan didn't turn around. I am home. That penthouse where your daughter lives and you occasionally sleep isn't a home. It's a mausoleum. Tucker's voice was matter-of-fact, without judgment, which somehow made the words cut deeper. Lily asked me today when you're coming back. Donovan's hand tightened around the coffee cup. I saw her this morning. For 8 minutes. While checking your phone. Tucker moved to stand beside him at the window. She's 5 years old, Donovan. She needs more than 8 minutes. She has everything she needs. The best schools, the best care. She doesn't have you. The words hung between them like an accusation. Donovan felt something twist in his chest, that familiar ache he'd spent 3 years trying to numb with work and distance and pretending he was fine. I'm doing my best, he said quietly. Are you? Donovan finally turned to look at his friend. Tucker's expression was patient but unwavering, the look of someone who'd known him long enough to see past the walls. I can't. Donovan's voice cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. I can't be what she needs. Every time I look at her, I see Isabel. Every time I hold her, I remember holding Isabel's hand while she... He couldn't finish. The memory was too sharp, too raw even after 3 years. Isabel bleeding out on the operating table, her hand going limp in his, the doctor saying words like complications and couldn't save her and so sorry while his newborn daughter screamed in an incubator across the room. He'd held Lily for the first time with his wife's blood still on his hands. Tucker's voice softened. Isabel would be furious with you right now. You know that, right? Donovan's laugh was bitter. Probably. She'd tell you to stop punishing yourself. To stop punishing Lily for something that wasn't anyone's fault. Tucker paused. She'd tell you to live, Donovan. Not just exist. Before Donovan could respond, the office door opened again. Vivian Sterling glided in, her heels clicking against the marble floor with the confidence of someone who belonged everywhere she went. Tucker, you're still here? Her smile was pleasant, professional, completely empty. It's terribly late. Just making sure the boss doesn't work himself to death, Tucker replied evenly. Vivian turned her attention to Donovan, moving close enough that he could smell her perfume. Expensive, cloying, nothing like the jasmine Isabel used to wear. You need to eat, Donovan. I've prepared dinner. Lily's asking for you again. Her hand landed on his shoulder, her touch light but possessive. Why don't you come home? Just for an hour. Donovan barely heard her. He was staring at his reflection in the window, seeing the ghost of the man he used to be. The one who laughed, who loved, who believed the world was full of possibility instead of pain. Maybe tomorrow, he said automatically. Vivian's smile didn't waver, but something flickered in her eyes. Something cold. Of course. Tomorrow. She squeezed his shoulder once before turning to leave. Don't work too late. You need your rest. The door closed behind her. Tucker waited exactly 3 seconds before speaking. You know she's in love with you, right? Donovan's head snapped up. What? Vivian. She's been positioning herself as Lily's mother figure for 3 years, managing your household, making herself indispensable. And the way she looks at you. Tucker shook his head. I'm just saying be careful. Grief makes us vulnerable, and some people see vulnerability as opportunity. Donovan wanted to argue, wanted to say Tucker was wrong, but exhaustion had stripped away his ability to pretend. So he just stood there, staring at his reflection, and wondered when his life had become something he needed to escape from. That night, while Donovan stared at spreadsheets he couldn't focus on and Celeste held her mother's hand in room 418, Lily Cross sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor with a notebook open in her lap. The notebook was her most precious possession, a secret she kept hidden under her mattress where Auntie Vivian would never find it. Inside were drawings, stick figures of families, houses with gardens, smiling faces holding hands. And photographs. Magazine cutouts of women with kind eyes. Printed images from her father's computer of his old friends, back when he used to have friends. At the top of each page, written in careful block letters, potential mommies. Lily studied the newest edition, a printed photo of a woman in scrubs, smiling at someone off camera. She'd found it on her father's desk, mixed in with papers about St. Mercy's Hospital. The woman looked warm. Safe. Like someone who might actually hug you instead of telling you to be quiet. She picked up her father's phone, the one he'd left charging on the kitchen counter and forgotten about because he always forgot about everything except work. Her small fingers scrolled through the contacts until she found what she was looking for. Emergency contact St. Mercy's Hospital. Lily's thumb hovered over the call button. Her heart hammered in her chest. This was scary. This was maybe wrong. But Daddy was so sad and nobody else seemed to notice, and she had to do something because if she didn't, he might disappear into that sadness completely and she'd lose him the same way she'd lost Mommy. She pressed call. The phone rang once. Twice. 3 times. Then a voice, tired but gentle. Hospice ward, this is Celeste. Lily's courage almost failed. But then she remembered the way her father's shoulders shook when he cried in his office late at night. She remembered how he barely looked at her anymore, like she was a mirror reflecting back all his pain. So she spoke, her voice small and trembling. My daddy cries at night when he thinks I'm asleep. He's so lonely. Will you marry him? The second call came 3 nights later. Celeste was in the break room, nursing cold coffee and trying to stay awake through hour 14 of her shift, when her phone buzzed. A known number. But something in her chest recognized it before her brain caught up. She answered immediately. Lily? You remembered. The relief in the child's voice was palpable. I was worried you'd forget. I could never forget you, sweetheart. Celeste glanced around the empty break room, then closed the door for privacy. How are you? Is everything okay? A long pause. Then, so quietly Celeste almost missed it. I had a bad dream. About Mommy. And Daddy's still at work, and Auntie Vivian told me to stop crying and go back to bed, but I can't stop thinking about it. Celeste's heart clenched. What was the dream about? I dreamed Mommy came back, but she didn't recognize me. She looked at me like I was a stranger. Lily's voice cracked. Does that mean I'm forgetting her? Is that why she wouldn't know me? Celeste sank into the nearest chair, her exhaustion forgotten. Oh honey, no. That's not what it means at all. Dreams are just our brains trying to make sense of big feelings. And losing someone you love? That's the biggest feeling there is. Do you? Lily hesitated. Do you know what that feels like? Losing someone? Celeste thought of her father, dead from a heart attack when she was 7. She thought of Richard, who was still alive but somehow felt more gone than her father ever had. She thought of her mother, slipping away a little more each day despite all of Celeste's prayers and bargaining with God. Yes, sweetheart. I do. Does it ever stop hurting? The question Celeste had asked herself 1,000 times. The question she'd never found a good answer to. No, she said honestly, because children deserve truth even when it hurt. But the love stays. The hurt means you loved someone enough that losing them left a mark. And those marks? They're proof that what you had was real. Silence on the other end of the line. Then. My teacher says everyone dies someday. That's true. My mom, Lily's voice wobbled. My mom died having me. Daddy told me when I asked. Does that mean it's my fault? Celeste's eyes burned with sudden tears. No, Lily. No, baby, it's not your fault. Sometimes bodies just, they can't do what we need them to do. It's nobody's fault. It's just sad and unfair and horrible, but it's not your fault. Daddy looks at me sometimes like he wishes I was her instead. The words were so small, so broken, that Celeste had to press her hand against her mouth to keep from sobbing. I don't think that's true, honey. I think your daddy's heart is so full of hurt that he doesn't know how to show love anymore. But that doesn't mean he doesn't love you. Sometimes grown-ups get so lost in their pain that they forget how to find their way back. Is your mommy lost too? The question caught Celeste off guard. What do you mean? You sound sad when you talk. Like Daddy sounds. Is someone you love lost? Smart kid. Too smart maybe. My mama's sick, Celeste admitted. Really sick. And I'm trying to help her, but sometimes it feels like I'm not doing enough. I bet you are though. I bet she knows how much you love her. Celeste's tears spilled over. When had she become the one being comforted? Thank you, Lily. That's really kind of you to say. They talked for 20 more minutes. About favorite colors, Lily's was purple, Celeste's was the blue of the ocean at sunset. About bedtime stories, Lily loved tales about brave princesses. Celeste admitted she preferred stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. About the small, everyday things that made life bearable. When they finally hung up, Celeste sat in the break room for a long time, staring at her phone and wondering what she was doing. This wasn't professional. This wasn't smart. This was a child she'd never met, calling her in the middle of the night because she was lonely and scared and looking for something Celeste wasn't sure she could give. But God help her, she couldn't bring herself to block the number. What would you say to a lonely child who just needed someone to listen? Sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest ripples. Comment below, we read every single one. Tucker Hayes had worked for Donovan Cross for 8 years, and in that time he'd learned to read his boss's moods better than most people read books. So when he walked past Lily's bedroom at 11:30 p.m. and heard her soft voice through the crack in the door, every instinct he had told him something was wrong. He paused, listening. And she said the love stays. Even when people go away, the love stays. Pause. I wish Daddy understood that. Tucker's hand was on the doorknob before he'd fully decided to open it. Lily looked up, startled, her small hand clutching a phone to her ear. A phone that definitely wasn't the kid-friendly device Donovan had given her. I have to go, Lily whispered into the phone. I'll call you tomorrow, okay? Bye, Miss Celeste. She ended the call quickly, her eyes wide with something between fear and defiance. Tucker stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. Lily, whose phone is that? She clutched it tighter to her chest. I borrowed it. From who? Daddy. Tucker crouched down to her level, his voice gentle. Kiddo, you can't just take people's phones. And who were you talking to? Lily's lower lip trembled. A nice lady. She listens to me. Nobody else listens. Something in Tucker's chest cracked. I listen. You're always working. Everyone's always working or telling me to be quiet or acting like I'm in the way. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I just wanted someone who has time for me. Is that bad? No, honey. That's not bad at all. Tucker sat down cross-legged on the floor beside her. But I need to know who this lady is. Can you tell me her name? Lily wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Miss Celeste. She works at a hospital. Daddy has her number saved for emergencies. Tucker's mind raced. St. Mercy's. The hospital where Donovan had been considering a charity partnership. The one with the hospice wing that had impressed him during preliminary research. How many times have you called her? Just twice. She's really nice, Tucker. She doesn't think I'm too much trouble. She talks to me like I'm a real person, not just a kid who should go away. Tucker felt anger rise in his chest. Not at Lily but at every adult in this child's life who'd failed her so completely that she'd had to reach out to a stranger for comfort. I'm sorry, Lily. I'm sorry we've all been so busy that you felt like you needed to do this. He held out his hand. Can I see the phone? Just to check the number? She handed it over reluctantly. Tucker scrolled through the recent calls, noting the 415 area code and the timestamp showing multiple conversations over the past few days. He pulled out his own phone, quickly running a search for the number. St. Mercy's Hospital. Hospice Ward Direct Line. His jaw tightened. This Celeste woman was either a saint or taking advantage of a vulnerable child, and he needed to find out which before this situation spiraled further out of control. But as he looked at Lily's tear-stained face, something else occurred to him. Something that might actually help. Because if this woman genuinely cared about Lily, if she was kind and patient and everything a child needed, maybe she was exactly what this broken family needed. It was insane. It was inappropriate. It was probably going to blow up in everyone's faces. But Tucker made a decision in that moment, kneeling on the floor of a little girl's bedroom at midnight, that would change all of their lives. Lily, he said carefully, I'm going to hold on to Daddy's phone for now. But I promise you I'm going to look into this Miss Celeste. And if she's as nice as you say she is, maybe we can arrange for you to talk to her properly. Would you like that? Lily's eyes lit up. Really? Really? But you have to promise me something. What? No more secret phone calls. If you want to talk to someone, you come to me first. Deal? She threw her arms around his neck, nearly knocking him over. Deal. Thank you, Tucker. Thank you, thank you, thank you. He hugged her back, his mind already spinning with plans. Tomorrow he'd look into Celeste Rivera. He'd run a background check, find out who she was, what made her tick, whether she was someone they could trust. And if she checked out? Well, Donovan needed a reason to live again. Lily needed a mother. And maybe, just maybe, a lonely nurse working herself to death needed a family just as much as they needed her. Tucker stood, tucking Lily into bed and promising to leave her night light on. As he left the room, he glanced back once at the little girl already drifting off to sleep, her secret notebook visible under the edge of her pillow. He'd find Celeste Rivera. And one way or another, he'd make sure this story had a chance at a happy ending. Because they all deserved that much. From the shadows of the hallway, Vivian Sterling watched Tucker leave Lily's room, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her palm hard enough to leave marks. She'd heard everything. Every word. Every promise. And she felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. For 3 years she'd positioned herself perfectly. The devoted sister-in-law. The selfless caretaker. The only maternal figure in Lily's life. Donovan might not love her yet, but he needed her, relied on her, couldn't imagine his household functioning without her. She'd been patient. So patient. Waiting for him to wake up one day and realize she was the logical choice. The safe choice. The woman who'd been there all along. And now some random nurse at a hospital threatened to ruin everything? Vivian's jaw clenched. No. She'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much, come too far to let some desperate woman with a savior complex waltz in and steal what was rightfully hers. She pulled out her phone, fingers already flying across the screen. By morning, she'd know everything there was to know about Celeste Rivera. Her history. Her weaknesses. Her vulnerabilities. And she'd use every single one of them to make sure this little problem disappeared before it became a real threat. Vivian smiled in the darkness, cold and calculating. Let Tucker make his plans. Let that nurse think she was helping. In the end, Vivian Sterling always got what she wanted. Always. Tucker had exactly 48 hours to make this work. He sat in his office at Cross Technologies, 3 monitors glowing in front of him, each displaying a different piece of the puzzle he was trying to assemble. On the left screen, Celeste Rivera's basic information. Employment history, clean background check, no red flags. Middle screen, St. Mercy's Hospital contact directory. Right screen, Donovan's calendar, packed solid with meetings he could barely be bothered to attend. Tucker leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled under his chin. The plan was risky. Donovan would see through it eventually, might even fire him for overstepping. But Lily's tear-stained face kept flashing through his mind and he wouldn't, let that child down. He picked up his phone and dialed St. Mercy's administrative office. "Good morning, this is Tucker Hayes calling on behalf of Cross Technologies. I'd like to discuss a potential charitable partnership with your hospice program. Would it be possible to arrange a tour for Mr. Cross himself? He's very hands-on with his philanthropy." The lie came easily. Donovan hadn't done hands-on philanthropy in 3 years, but the hospital administrator didn't need to know that. That would be wonderful. When would Mr. Cross be available? Tucker glanced at Donovan's calendar, finding a 2-hour window labeled strategic planning, that he knew meant Donovan staring at his computer and accomplishing nothing. "How about tomorrow? 2 p.m.? Perfect. I'll have our best staff member give the tour. Celeste Rivera, she's been with us 7 years, knows every inch of the hospice ward." Tucker's pulse quickened. Almost too easy. "That sounds excellent. We'll see you tomorrow." He ended the call and immediately pulled up Donovan's schedule, deleting the strategic planning block and replacing it with mandatory St. Mercy's Hospital tour, 2 p.m., do not reschedule. Phase 1 complete. Now for the harder part, convincing Donovan to actually show up. Donovan stood in front of his bathroom mirror at 6 a.m., studying the stranger staring back at him. When had the shadows under his eyes become permanent? When had the lines around his mouth deepened into canyons? When had he started looking like his father, that same hollow expression of a man going through motions instead of living a life? He splashed cold water on his face, trying to shock himself into something resembling alertness. Another day. Another series of meetings that meant nothing. Another night spent at the office avoiding the penthouse that felt more like a mausoleum than a home. His phone buzzed. Tucker's name appeared on the screen with a message that made Donovan's jaw clench. "Don't even think about canceling the hospital tour today. I've already confirmed. 2 p.m. sharp." We're something that doesn't scream, dead inside. Donovan typed back, "I don't remember agreeing to this." 3 dots appeared immediately. "You didn't? I decided for you. Lily needs you to do something besides work. This counts. How does touring a hospital help Lily? Trust me." Donovan stared at those 2 words for a long moment. Trust. Such a simple concept that felt impossibly complicated. But Tucker had never steered him wrong, had stayed loyal through the worst years of Donovan's life when everyone else had quietly distanced themselves from his grief. "Fine. 2 p.m. But this better not be some intervention disguised as charity work. Would I do that to you? Yes. Fair. But it's not. I promise." Donovan pocketed his phone and headed for his closet, trying to remember what not looking dead inside required as a dress code. Celeste was elbow-deep in paperwork when her supervisor appeared in the break room doorway, practically vibrating with excitement. "Celeste. Thank God you're here. I need you to do something for me." Celeste looked up from the insurance forms she'd been fighting with for the past hour. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. Donovan Cross is coming here. Today. For a tour." Her supervisor pressed both hands to her chest like she might faint. "The Donovan Cross. The billionaire. He's considering a major charitable partnership with our hospice program." Celeste's stomach dropped. "And you need me to? Give him the tour. You're our best nurse, you know the program inside and out, and you're so good with people. Please, Celeste. This could mean new equipment, expanded services, funding for patients who can't afford care. This could change everything." Celeste thought about the pile of her mother's medical bills sitting on her kitchen counter. Thought about how many families were drowning in debt just like hers. Thought about Mrs. Patterson in 302 who needed a better pain management system. Thought about all the ways funding could ease suffering. "What time?" she heard herself ask. 2 p.m. "You're an angel. Thank you, thank you, thank you." Her supervisor disappeared in a whirl of enthusiasm, leaving Celeste alone with her racing thoughts. Donovan Cross. She'd seen his face in business magazines, on the news, in articles about tech innovation and market disruption. Cold eyes. Sharp features. The kind of man who looked through people instead of at them. She glanced down at her scrubs, wrinkled from a double shift, coffee stain on the left pocket. Not exactly the outfit you wore to impress a billionaire. But this wasn't about impressing anyone. This was about helping her patients. About securing funding that could save lives. About doing what she did best, caring for people who needed it most. She could handle one tour with a cold billionaire. What she couldn't handle was the strange flutter in her chest when she thought about meeting someone named Cross. About a little girl named Lily who'd called from her father's phone. About coincidences that felt too specific to be accidental. Celeste pushed the thought away and went back to her paperwork, trying not to notice how her hands had started shaking. At 1:55 p.m., Celeste stood in the hospice ward lobby, smoothing down her fresh scrubs and trying to calm her breathing. She'd changed clothes, fixed her hair, even put on lip gloss, small armor against the nervousness crawling up her spine. The automatic doors whooshed open. And Celeste forgot how to breathe. Donovan Cross walked in like he owned the building, which he probably could if he wanted to. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. But it wasn't his wealth that stopped her heart. It was his eyes. Empty. Haunted. Carrying the weight of grief so profound she recognized it instantly because she saw the same expression in her mirror every morning. Their gazes locked. The air between them felt electric, charged with something Celeste couldn't name. She watched his eyes widen fractionally, watched something flicker across his face. Surprise? Recognition? He looked at her like she was a ghost he hadn't expected to encounter. She looked at him and saw a man drowning in plain sight. Tucker Hayes appeared at Donovan's elbow, smooth and professional. "Mr. Cross, this is Celeste Rivera. She'll be showing us around today." Celeste extended her hand, forcing her voice to stay steady. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Cross. Thank you for considering supporting our program." His hand enveloped hers, warm, calloused despite the expensive suit, trembling so slightly she almost missed it. "The pleasure is mine," he said, his voice rougher than she expected. "Please call me Donovan." "Celeste." She pulled her hand back, trying to ignore how her palms still tingled from his touch. "Should we start the tour?" Before anyone could answer, a small voice called out from behind Donovan. "Miss Celeste." Celeste's heart stopped. A little girl with dark curls and enormous brown eyes came running across the lobby, her tiny feet skidding on the polished floor. Lily Cross threw herself into Celeste's arms with the trust of a child who'd been waiting forever for this moment. "You're the phone lady. You're real. I thought maybe I dreamed you." Celeste caught her automatically, her arms wrapping around the small body as her mind tried to catch up with what was happening. This was Lily. The lonely child who'd called her in the middle of the night. The daughter of the man now staring at both of them with confusion and something that might have been horror. "Lily?" Donovan's voice cracked. "What are you, Tucker? What is she?" He looked between his assistant, his daughter, and the nurse holding her, and Celeste watched the pieces click into place. Watched understanding dawn. Watched his face go through a dozen emotions in as many seconds. "What phone lady?" The question came out barely above a whisper. Lily pulled back from Celeste but kept holding her hand, looking up at her father with defiant courage. "I called her Daddy. When you were working and I was lonely. I found your phone and called the emergency number, and Miss Celeste answered, and she talked to me about Mommy and being sad and how love stays even when people go away." Silence crashed through the lobby like a physical thing. Celeste felt her cheeks burn. This was wrong. This was so far outside professional boundaries she couldn't even see the line anymore. She should have reported the calls. Should have contacted child services or Donovan directly. Should have done anything except what she'd done. Formed a connection with a stranger's lonely child in the middle of the night. "I'm so sorry," she started, her voice shaking. I didn't know how to," she sounded so lost and Donovan held up a hand, stopping her. His eyes were fixed on Lily, and Celeste watched his careful control crumble. His shoulders sagged. His breath hitched. His hand came up to cover his mouth as if holding back words that might shatter him. "You called a stranger?" he asked his daughter. "Because you were lonely?" "You're always working," Lily said, her lower lip trembling. "And Auntie Vivian is mean, and I miss Mommy, and I just wanted someone to talk to who wouldn't tell me to be quiet." Donovan's eyes closed. A single tear tracked down his cheek before he could stop it. "Baby, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, I should have." He knelt down, pulling Lily into his arms, and Celeste had to look away from the raw pain on his face. This was private. Sacred. A father realizing how badly he'd failed his child while drowning in his own grief. Tucker stepped closer to Celeste, his voice low. "For what it's worth, thank you. For being kind to her. For not hanging up. She needed that more than you know." Celeste couldn't speak. Could only watch Donovan hold his daughter and whisper apologies into her hair while hospital staff pretended not to stare at the billionaire breaking down in their lobby. A wheelchair rolled by and Celeste's heart lurched. Mama Rosa. Her mother was being taken for her afternoon walk by one of the orderlies, and her sharp eyes took in the entire scene. Lily in her father's arms, Donovan's tear-stained face, Celeste standing there looking like her world had just tilted sideways. Rosa's eyes found Celeste and she smiled. That knowing, maternal smile that said she saw everything, understood everything, and approved of things Celeste hadn't even begun to process yet. The orderly wheeled her past, but not before Rosa called out softly. "Sometimes God answers prayers we didn't know we were praying, Mija." Donovan straightened, still holding Lily's hand, and turned to face Celeste fully. His eyes were red-rimmed, his careful composure completely demolished. "I need to apologize," he said. "For my daughter calling you. For putting you in an impossible position. His voice broke. For being so absent from her life that she had to reach out to a stranger for comfort." "She's not a stranger, Daddy," Lily interjected. "She's my friend." Something shifted in Donovan's expression as he looked at Celeste. Really looked at her. Not the polite once-over of a donor meeting a nurse, but the desperate examination of a man seeing a lifeline he hadn't known existed. "You talked to her. About grief. About loss. It wasn't a question. You didn't have to do that." "I couldn't hang up," Celeste said simply. "She needed someone and she hesitated. I understand what it's like to lose people. To feel alone even when you're surrounded by others. I couldn't leave her in that darkness." Donovan's throat worked. "Let me fund your mother's treatment. Please. As an apology for my daughter disturbing you. As thanks for being there when I wasn't." The words hit Celeste like a slap. Her spine straightened, her walls slamming into place so fast she practically heard them lock. "I don't need your pity or your money, Mr. Cross." "It's not pity." "Yes, it is." Her voice came out sharper than she intended. "You feel guilty so you want to throw money at the problem. But I'm not a problem to be solved. I'm managing just fine." "Are you?" The question was gentle but cut deep. "Because you work double shifts. Because you look exhausted. Because your supervisor mentioned hoping this partnership would help families who can't afford care, and I'm guessing you're one of those families." Celeste felt exposed. Like he'd peeled back her skin and seen straight through to the fear and desperation she worked so hard to hide. "My mother's care is not your concern." "No," Donovan agreed. "But my daughter's happiness is. And for some reason I don't understand, you make her happy. You gave her something I couldn't, someone who listened, someone who cared. That's not something I can repay, but I'd like to try." Celeste wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him where he could shove his charity and his guilt and his money. But then she looked down at Lily, who was watching them both with huge, hopeful eyes, and something in her chest cracked. "I can't accept your money," she said quietly. "But if you really want to help, be there for your daughter. Go home before midnight. Ask her about her day. That's what she needs. Not a stranger on the phone, she needs you." She turned to walk away, her vision blurring with tears she refused to shed in front of them. "Miss Celeste, wait." Lily's small hand caught hers, and Celeste looked down into a face that trusted her completely, loved her without reservation, needed her in a way that both terrified and broke her. "Please don't go. I love you." The words were so simple, so pure, so completely devastating that Celeste felt her knees go weak. "Lily, sweetheart. Please, stay. Just for a little while." Celeste looked helplessly at Donovan, who was watching his daughter with an expression of mingled pain and understanding. He met her gaze, and for a moment, they were just two broken people trying to figure out how to do right by a child who deserved so much more than either of them knew how to give. "The tour," Tucker said into the silence. "We should probably still do the tour. If you're willing, Celeste." She should say no. Should walk away from this mess before it got more complicated. Should protect herself from getting attached to a child she could never keep and a man whose grief matched her own too perfectly. But Lily's hand was in hers, warm and trusting. And Celeste had never been good at walking away from people who needed her. "Okay," she whispered. "The tour. But then I need to get back to work." Would you have walked away? Sometimes the hardest choice is letting yourself care. Let us know in the comments what you think Celeste should do. The tour that followed was surreal. Celeste showed them the hospice ward on autopilot, explaining equipment and programs while hyper-aware of Donovan's presence beside her. He asked intelligent questions, listened intently, but his eyes kept drifting back to Lily, who refused to let go of Celeste's hand. By the time they finished, 2 hours had passed, and Celeste felt emotionally wrung out. "Thank you for your time," Donovan said as they returned to the lobby. "This has been illuminating. I'll have my team contact the hospital about funding." "That's wonderful. The patients will." "Celeste." She turned. He was looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Thank you. For what you did for Lily. For seeing her when I couldn't. I'm in your debt. Before she could respond, Tucker appeared with a business card. My number. If Lily calls again, and something tells me she will, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll make sure we're not putting you in an awkward position. Celeste took the card, her fingers numb. As they left, Lily turned back one last time, waving with her whole arm. Bye, Miss Celeste. I'll talk to you soon. The automatic doors closed behind them. Celeste stood in the empty lobby holding a business card, and wondered what she'd just gotten herself into. Vivian was waiting when Tucker returned to the penthouse that evening. She stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, fury radiating off her in waves. You took Lily to see that nurse. Tucker set his briefcase down carefully. I took Lily to accompany her father on a charity tour. Don't play games with me. Vivian's voice was ice. You're trying to replace me. I've been Lily's mother for 3 years. 3 years of sacrifice, of putting my life on hold, of being there when Donovan fell apart. And you're going to throw me aside for some random woman? You've been positioning yourself, Tucker corrected. Not loving her. There's a difference. Vivian's hand cracked across his face before he could react. The slap echoed through the kitchen. How dare you? I've given everything to this family. Everything. And I will not let you or some desperate nurse destroy what I've built. Tucker touched his burning cheek, his voice deadly calm. You've built nothing but manipulation. And Donovan's going to see through it eventually. By the time he does, it won't matter. I'll be Mrs. Cross and you'll be unemployed. She leaned close, her breath hot against his face. Stay out of my way, Tucker. Or I'll make sure you regret it. She swept out of the kitchen, leaving Tucker alone with his stinging cheek and the certainty that he'd just declared war. He pulled out his phone, quickly searching Celeste Rivera's background more thoroughly. If Vivian was digging into her past, he needed to know what she'd find first. Divorce records. Medical debt. Nothing scandalous, but Vivian would twist it into something ugly. Tucker composed a quick text to Donovan. We need to talk about Vivian. The response came immediately. I know. I'm handling it. Tucker hoped that was true. Because Vivian Sterling didn't lose gracefully, and she'd already proven she'd do anything to protect what she saw as hers. 3 days later, Celeste was finishing her evening shift when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mr. Cross would like to apologize properly. Dinner tomorrow, 7 p.m. Please come for Lily's sake. Tucker Hayes. Celeste stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the delete button. This was a bad idea. This was crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. This was asking for heartbreak. But then she thought of Lily's small hand in hers. Thought of the trust in those brown eyes. Thought of how it felt to be needed by someone who didn't want anything from her except her presence. Okay. But only for Lily. The response was instant. Of course. Address attached. Thank you. Celeste looked at the address, a penthouse in the most expensive part of the city, and wondered what she was walking into. The next evening, Lily Cross stood in the middle of the penthouse living room, surrounded by her artwork. She'd drawn pictures all day, families holding hands, hearts and flowers, stick figures with big smiles. She'd raided the kitchen for flowers, arranging them in vases around the room. And she'd made a banner, carefully lettering each word, Welcome Mommy. Tucker had helped hang it over the doorway, his expression unreadable. You know this might not work the way you hope, right kiddo? It will, Lily said with absolute certainty. Miss Celeste is perfect for us. And your dad. He's sad. She's sad. Together they can be happy. That's how it works. Tucker wished he had a child's faith that love could fix everything. At 6:45, Donovan arrived home, early for the first time in months, and stopped dead in the doorway. Lily, what is all this? His daughter turned, her smile brilliant. I invited Miss Celeste for dinner. To say thank you. And to show you she's nice and perfect and should definitely be my new mommy. Donovan's face went through several expressions before settling on panicked. Invited? Lily, you can't just invite people. Tucker helped. He sent the text. Donovan's gaze snapped to his assistant, who had the grace to look slightly guilty. She was very persuasive. I'm going to fire you. Probably. But not until after dinner. Before Donovan could respond, the doorbell rang. Lily squealed and ran for the door, Donovan lunging after her. Lily, wait, we need to. But she'd already flung it open. Celeste stood in the hallway holding a small bouquet of flowers, her eyes widening as she took in the banner, the decorations, the little girl bouncing with excitement. Miss Celeste. You came. You really came. Celeste's gaze moved past Lily to Donovan, who looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "I'm so sorry," he started. "I didn't know, this wasn't planned." But Celeste was looking at the banner. At the flowers. At the drawings covering every surface. At the desperate hope radiating from a 5-year-old who just wanted a mother. And Celeste felt her heart crack wide open. "Hi, Lily," she said softly, kneeling down. "Thank you for inviting me. These flowers are for you." Lily threw her arms around Celeste's neck, and over the child's shoulder, Celeste met Donovan's eyes. Something passed between them in that moment. Understanding. Fear. Possibility. They were both terrified. They were both broken. And they were both standing at a crossroads neither had asked for but couldn't walk away from. "Please," Lily whispered against Celeste's shoulder. "Please don't go. I need you. Daddy needs you. We all need you." Celeste straightened slowly, Lily's hand clasped in hers, and looked at the man watching them both with naked vulnerability on his face. "Maybe," she said quietly, "we could all use some dinner and conversation. Nothing more. Just being present for each other." Donovan's shoulders sagged with relief. "I'd like that." They moved inside, 3 broken people trying to figure out how to be whole, when the elevator dinged. Vivian Sterling stepped into the penthouse, froze at the scene before her and smiled. "Oh, I didn't know we had company." Her eyes raked over Celeste with barely concealed disdain. "How lovely. Lily, sweetie, it's past your bedtime." "But Miss Celeste just got here." "Bedtime. Now." Vivian's voice hardened, and Lily's hand tightened around Celeste's. The air in the room shifted, tension crackling like electricity. Celeste looked at Lily's frightened face, at Donovan's conflicted expression, at Vivian's territorial smile. And she understood with perfect clarity that this was about to get much more complicated than a simple dinner. Battle lines had been drawn. And she was standing right in the middle of them. Celeste left the penthouse that night with Vivian's words echoing in her ears like poison. She'd made polite excuses, kissed Lily's forehead, and fled before the walls closed in completely. The elevator ride down felt like descending into water, pressure building in her chest until she could barely breathe. By the time she reached St. Mercy's, her hands were shaking. She found her mother's room in darkness except for the soft glow of monitors. Mama Rosa was awake, her eyes finding Celeste's face with the unerring accuracy of a woman who'd spent 32 years reading her daughter's heart. "Mija. What happened?" Celeste sank into the chair beside the bed, and everything she'd been holding back came pouring out. The phone calls. The little girl. The billionaire with grief in his eyes. The dinner that felt like stepping into someone else's life. The woman who'd looked at her like an intruder in a home that would never be hers. "I don't know what I'm doing, Mama. I don't know how I got here or how to get out without hurting that little girl." Rosa's hand found hers, fingers trembling but grip surprisingly strong. "Why would you want to get out?" "Because it's not my place. Because I'm just a nurse who answered a phone call. Because that child needs a real mother, not some broken woman who can barely keep her own life together." "And who decides what makes a real mother?" Rosa's voice was gentle but firm. "Biology? A piece of paper? Or love? Care? Showing up when a child needs you most?" Celeste wiped her eyes with the back of her free hand. "Richard said I was too much. Too intense, too emotional, too exhausting to deal with. What if he was right? What if I'm not capable of being what anyone needs?" "Richard." Rosa's voice hardened in a way Celeste rarely heard. "Richard left because he was weak. Because when life got hard, when I got sick and you needed support, he ran. That wasn't about you being too much, Mija. That was about him being too little." The words hit like a blow, cracking something open in Celeste's chest. "But Mama." "No. Listen to me." Rosa squeezed her hand tighter, and Celeste could feel how much effort it cost her. "You are the strongest person I know. You work yourself to exhaustion taking care of everyone else. You sacrifice and give and love with your whole heart even when it hurts. That's not weakness. That's not being too much. That's being exactly enough for the people who deserve you." Celeste's throat closed. "That baby chose you for a reason," Rosa continued, her voice softening. "Not because you're perfect. Not because you have all the answers. But because you listened. Because you cared. Because when she reached out in the darkness, you were there. Don't run from love because you're scared of being hurt again." "I'm not just scared of being hurt," Celeste whispered. "I'm scared of wanting something I can never have. Of letting myself hope and then losing it all over again. And what if you don't lose it? What if this is your chance at something beautiful?" Rosa's eyes glistened with tears. "I won't be here forever, Mija. My time is running out. And before I go, I need to know you're not alone. That you have people who love you. that you're letting yourself be loved. Celeste's composure shattered completely. Don't talk like that. You're not going anywhere. The doctors said. The doctors say a lot of things. But I know my body. I know what's coming. Rosa brought Celeste's hand to her lips, kissing it gently. So please don't waste time being afraid. That man? He's drowning just like you. And that little girl? She's a life raft for both of you. Let yourself hold on. Celeste sobbed, pressing her forehead against their joined hands, and felt something fundamental shift inside her. The walls she'd built so carefully, the armor she'd worn so long, they were crumbling, and she was terrified of what stood on the other side. But beneath the fear was something else. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. I think I'm falling for them, she admitted in a broken whisper. Both of them. And it's terrifying. Rosa smiled through her own tears. Love is always terrifying me, Nina. That's how you know it's real. Across the city, Donovan sat alone in his study, the lights dimmed, a glass of whiskey untouched on the desk beside him. His laptop screen glowed with a frozen image, Isabel smiling at the camera, her hand resting on her swollen belly, 3 weeks before everything fell apart. He'd watched this video 1,000 times. Usually, it hurt too much to get past the first few seconds. But tonight he let it play. Isabel's voice filled the room, warm and alive and completely gone. Hi baby. It's Mommy. I'm making this for you because I want you to know how much you're already loved. Your daddy and I can't wait to meet you. We've been getting everything ready. Your nursery is painted the most beautiful shade of lavender, and there are stars on the ceiling that glow at night. Donovan's hands clenched on the arms of his chair. Your daddy's going to be amazing. He's brilliant and kind and so excited to teach you everything. He's going to read you stories and show you the stars and love you with his whole heart. I know that because that's how he loves me, completely without reservation, like I'm the most precious thing in his world. His vision blurred. And if something happens to me, Isabel's expression shifted, became serious. If I'm not there to watch you grow up, I need you to know something. Your daddy might get sad. He might struggle. But that's not your fault, baby. That's just what happens when you love someone so much that losing them feels like losing part of yourself. Donovan pressed his hand against his mouth, trying to hold back the sound threatening to escape. But here's what I need him to remember. Isabel looked directly at the camera, and Donovan could almost believe she was looking at him across time and death and everything that separated them. Don, if you're watching this, if the worst happened and I'm gone, I need you to promise me something. Promise me you'll love again. Promise me you won't let fear win. Promise me you'll let yourself be happy, even if that happiness doesn't include me. The video ended. The screen went dark. Donovan sat in silence, Isabel's words echoing through the empty spaces of his heart. The study door opened. Tucker stepped inside, his expression careful. You okay? She told me to love again, Donovan said quietly. In the video she made for Lily. She told me not to let fear win. Tucker moved closer, settling into the chair across from Donovan's desk. Isabel was smart. She was everything. Donovan's voice cracked. And I failed her. I failed Lily. I've spent 3 years hiding from my own daughter because looking at her hurts too much. But you're here now. You're trying. That counts. Does it? Donovan looked up, and Tucker was startled by the raw vulnerability in his eyes. I'm drawn to Celeste. Terrified by it, but drawn to her in a way I haven't felt since Isabel. And I don't know if that's betrayal or permission or just desperation for something to fill this void. What do you think Isabel would say? Donovan closed his eyes, hearing his wife's voice again. Promise me you'll love again. She'd tell me to stop being an idiot. To stop punishing myself for something I couldn't control. To let Lily have a mother, even if that mother isn't her. Then maybe you should listen. I'm terrified of losing someone again, Donovan admitted. Of loving and having that love ripped away. Of Lily getting attached and then. Life doesn't come with guarantees, Tucker interrupted gently. You could spend the rest of your existence protecting yourself from pain, but you'd also be protecting yourself from joy. From connection. From the things that make life worth living. He paused. Celeste isn't Isabel. She never will be. But maybe that's not what either of you needs. Maybe you both just need someone who understands grief. Who knows what it's like to lose everything and keep going anyway. Donovan stared at the darkened screen, at the ghost of his wife's smile frozen in memory. Isabel would like her, he said softly. She always loved people with quiet strength. People who gave without expecting anything back. Then honor Isabel by letting yourself be happy. She'd want that for you. For Lily. Donovan nodded slowly, something loosening in his chest. The guilt was still there, he suspected it always would be, but beneath it was something new. Permission. Oh. The terrifying possibility of a future that didn't revolve entirely around loss. Tucker? Yeah. Thank you. For not giving up on us. Tucker smiled. Someone had to save you from yourself. But Tucker's smile faded as soon as he left Donovan's study. He headed straight for his own office, pulling up files he'd been investigating for weeks. Something about Vivian's behavior had never sat right with him. The way she'd inserted herself into every aspect of the household, the control she wielded, the subtle way she undermined anyone who might threaten her position. So he'd started digging. What he found made his blood run cold. Financial records showing regular transfers from Lily's trust fund to offshore accounts. Forged documents naming Vivian as Lily's legal guardian in case of Donovan's death or incapacity. Email chains with lawyers discussing how to contest any future custody arrangements. A paper trail of manipulation so extensive it took Tucker's breath away. Vivian wasn't just positioning herself to be part of the family. She was planning to own it. Tucker gathered the evidence, his hands steady despite the rage burning through his veins. Then he went to find Donovan. The confrontation happened in Donovan's study, with Tucker laying out document after document while Donovan's face went from confused to disbelieving to coldly furious. She's been stealing from Lily's trust fund for 2 years, Tucker explained, his voice tight. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. She's been forging your signature on legal documents, establishing herself as Lily's guardian without your knowledge or consent. Donovan's hands shook as he read through the papers. Why? Because she's in love with you. Or with your money and status. I'm honestly not sure there's a difference for her anymore. Tucker pulled up an email chain. She's been planning this since Isabel died. Positioning herself as the perfect replacement. The devoted sister-in-law who sacrificed everything. I trusted her. Donovan's voice was barely audible. Isabel trusted her. I know. I'm sorry. The study door burst open. Vivian stood there, her face pale but composed. Going through my private emails, Tucker? That's a criminal offense. So is embezzlement, Tucker shot back. And fraud. And about 6 other charges I can think of off the top of my head. Vivian's mask slipped, fury blazing through. You have no idea what I've sacrificed for this family. I gave up my life, my career, everything to take care of Lily after Isabel died. I earned this. You used my daughter's grief, Donovan said, his voice deadly quiet. He stood, and Tucker had never seen him look more dangerous. You manipulated a traumatized child to get what you wanted. I love that child. You love what she represents. Access to me. To my money. To the life you think you deserve. Donovan moved around the desk, each step measured. But you never loved her for who she is. Because if you did, you would never have stolen from her future. Vivian's composure cracked completely. I deserve this. Isabel got everything, she got you, the perfect life, the child. What did I get? Nothing. I had to watch my sister have everything I wanted while I smiled and played the supportive family member. So yes, when she died, I saw an opportunity. Is that so wrong? Yes, Donovan said simply. It's exactly that wrong. You owe me. I owe you nothing. You're fired. You're out of this house tonight. And if you ever come near my daughter again, I'll have you arrested. Vivian lunged at him, nails outstretched, screaming incoherently. Tucker intercepted her, holding her back while Donovan called security. You'll regret this, she shrieked as guards appeared to escort her out. You're making a mistake. That nurse will never love you like I do. She'll leave you just like everyone else. You'll come crawling back and I won't be here. The door slammed behind her, cutting off her threats. Donovan stood in the sudden silence, trembling. Is Lily asleep in her room? She didn't hear any of that, Tucker assured him. Donovan sank into his chair, pressing his hands against his face. How did I not see it? How did I let her get that close? You were grieving. She took advantage of that. It's not your fault. But Donovan barely heard him. He was thinking about Celeste's face when Vivian had walked into the penthouse. The way she'd stepped back, her walls slamming into place, retreating from something she thought she had no right to claim. He needed to fix this. He needed to tell her that Vivian was gone, that the obstacle standing between them had removed itself. His phone rang. A known number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Mr. Cross. An unfamiliar voice, professional but urgent. This is St. Mercy's Hospital. We have Celeste Rivera listed as one of your contacts, and we're trying to reach her family. Her mother, Rosa Rivera, has collapsed. She's being rushed into emergency surgery and... Donovan was moving before the caller finished speaking. We're on our way. Celeste sat in the surgical waiting room, her scrubs still on from her shift, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. The doctor's words kept replaying in her head. Massive internal bleeding. Doing everything we can. Need to prepare yourself. She'd watched patients' families sit in these chairs 1,000 times. Had delivered bad news, held hands, offered comfort. But being on this side of it felt like drowning in slow motion. Her phone rang. Lily's number, the one Tucker had programmed in after that disastrous dinner. Celeste answered with shaking hands. Hello? Miss Celeste. Lily's voice was thick with tears. Daddy said the mean lady is gone. She's never coming back. Can you come home now? The word home hit Celeste like a physical blow. Lily, sweetheart, I can't. I'm at the hospital. My mama, her voice broke. My mama's really sick, baby. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Lily sniffled. Do you want me to come? I could keep you company. You shouldn't be alone. Celeste pressed her hand against her mouth, trying to hold back sobs. That's so sweet, honey. But it's late and you should be sleeping. I'll ask Daddy. He'll bring me. We'll be there soon, okay? Don't be alone. The line went dead before Celeste could protest. She sat there, phone in hand, and felt something break open in her chest. These people, this child she'd known for days, this man she barely understood, they were offering to come sit with her in a hospital waiting room in the middle of the night. Have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and letting love in? Sometimes the hardest choice is accepting that you deserve to be cared for. Tell us in the comments what you would do. 20 minutes later, the waiting room doors opened. Donovan walked in with Lily in his arms, the child still in her pajamas, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Their eyes found Celeste across the room, and she saw such gentle concern on his face that fresh tears spilled over. Tucker told me, Donovan said quietly, settling beside her with Lily between them. You shouldn't be alone. Lily immediately climbed into Celeste's lap, wrapping small arms around her neck. It's okay to be sad. You told me that. Remember? The love stays even when people have to go away. Celeste held the child and cried, while Donovan's hand found hers in the space between their chairs. He didn't say anything, there was nothing to say, but his presence was everything. They sat like that for 2 hours. Waiting. Hoping. Holding each other in the way broken people do when they're trying to become whole. Finally, a doctor emerged. Ms. Rivera? Your mother is stable. The surgery went well. She's asking for you. Relief crashed through Celeste so powerfully she nearly collapsed. Donovan's arm came around her shoulders, steadying her. Can I see her? Of course. But she needs rest, so keep it brief. Celeste stood on shaking legs. Lily hugged her once more. Tell your mama I said hi. And that she's brave. Just like you. Rosa was barely conscious when Celeste entered the recovery room, but her eyes opened at the sound of her daughter's footsteps. Mija. I'm here, Mama. I'm right here. Rosa's gaze drifted past Celeste to the figures waiting in the hallway, Donovan standing with Lily on his hip, both watching through the window. There's my daughter, Rosa whispered, a smile touching her pale lips. And her family. Mama? I see it in your eyes. You love them. Rosa's hand squeezed weakly. Don't be afraid of it. Go. Find your family. Let yourself have this. I'm not leaving you. I'm not going anywhere. Not yet. Rosa's smile widened slightly. But they need you. And you need them. So go. Be happy. That's all I've ever wanted for you. Celeste kissed her mother's forehead, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume mixed with antiseptic. I love you, Mama. I know, Mija. Now go love them too. Celeste returned to the waiting room where Donovan and Lily waited. She looked at them, this man with grief in his eyes and hope on his face, this child who'd chosen her out of all the people in the world, and felt every wall she'd ever built come crashing down. She's okay, Celeste said, her voice trembling. She's going to be okay. Lily whooped with joy. Donovan's shoulders sagged with relief. I'm glad, he said softly. Then after a pause, Celeste, I need to tell you something. Vivian is gone. I found out she was. He glanced at Lily, choosing his words carefully. She wasn't who we thought she was. She's out of our lives. Permanently. Celeste absorbed this information, watching him carefully. I'm sorry. I know she was family. She used my daughter. Used my grief. That's unforgivable. His jaw tightened. But that's not why I'm telling you. I'm telling you because I don't want you to think there are obstacles between us. I don't want you to hold back because you think you're intruding on something that doesn't belong to you. Lily tugged on Celeste's hand. Daddy's trying to say he likes you. And that we want you to be part of our family. He's just bad at saying it. Despite everything, Celeste laughed. Donovan's ears turned red, but he didn't look away. I don't have pretty words, Celeste. I don't know how to do this, any of this. But Lily's right. I am lonely. We both are. And when you're with us, something that's been broken for 3 years feels like it might be able to heal. He took her free hand, his touch gentle. I can't promise it won't be messy. I can't promise I won't fail sometimes, or that grief won't sneak up on us when we least expect it. But I'd like to try. If you're willing. Celeste looked at their joined hands, then at Lily's hopeful face, then back to Donovan's vulnerable expression. I'm terrified, she whispered. Me too, he admitted. Lily squeezed between them, grabbing both their hands. That's okay. We'll be scared together. That's what families do. And somehow the wisdom of a 5-year-old made everything simple. Celeste pulled them both into a hug, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she let herself hope. 6 months later. Celeste sat curled up on the penthouse sofa, Lily tucked against her side, reading from a well-worn copy of The Velveteen Rabbit. The little girl's eyes were already drooping, her thumb inching toward her mouth the way it always did when she was falling asleep. And once you are real you can't become unreal again, Celeste read softly. It lasts for always. From across the room, Mama Rosa sat in a comfortable recliner, stronger now, her treatment successful, her color returned. She smiled as she watched her daughter with the child who'd chosen her, in the home that had somehow become theirs. Donovan stood in the doorway, unnoticed, watching the scene with wonder. This was what healing looked like. This was what happiness felt like. After 3 years of darkness, he'd finally found his way back to the light. Lily looked up, spotting him. Daddy? Are you going to ask her now? Celeste had snapped up, confused. Ask me what? Donovan stepped into the room, suddenly more nervous than he'd been during any business negotiation. Lily's been very patient. She's been asking me the same question for 2 weeks. What question? Lily bounced excitedly. When are you going to ask Miss Celeste to marry us? Celeste's breath caught. Donovan knelt beside the sofa, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a simple ring, elegant, understated, perfect. I was waiting for you to give permission, he said to Lily, who squealed and nodded frantically. Then he turned to Celeste and his voice went soft. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out. But I also know that life is short and precious, and I don't want to waste another day without you knowing how much you mean to us. To me. He took a shaky breath. Celeste Rivera, will you marry me? Will you be Lily's mother, my partner, and let us love you the way you deserve to be loved? Celeste looked at the ring, then at Lily's radiant face, then at Mama Rosa wiping happy tears from her eyes. Finally, her gaze returned to Donovan, this broken, beautiful man who'd let her into his heart despite every reason to keep it locked away. Yes, she whispered. Yes to all of it. The ring slid onto her finger as Lily launched herself at both of them, shrieking with joy. Mama Rosa laughed through her tears, clapping her hands together. And Donovan kissed Celeste for the first time, gentle and reverent, like she was something precious he'd been entrusted to protect. When they broke apart, Lily was already planning. We need flowers. And a big cake. And can I call you Mommy now? Please? Celeste pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. You can call me whatever makes you happy, sweetheart. Mommy it is. They stayed there on the sofa, 4 people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to be each other's light. For people who'd learned that family wasn't just about blood or biology, but about showing up. About choosing love even when it was terrifying. About healing together instead of breaking apart. Outside the windows, the city sparkled with evening lights. Inside, a new family took their first breath together. And somewhere, Celeste liked to think, Isabel was smiling. Want to see more love stories that make you believe again? Stories about second chances, chosen families, and love that heals? Subscribe and join our family. What did you think of Lily's matchmaking skills? Did her plan work? Comment below. We read every single one and your thoughts mean the world to us.